Hey everyone, this is Andy at themortalguitarist.com. Welcome and thanks for joining me. Right, this is a video in the music theory series, and a couple of videos ago we looked at notes, what they are and how they're named. Last time out we looked at the basic intervals that are used to build up scales and chords, which are tones and semitones or whole notes and half notes. This time out we're going to look at one of the scales, one of the most important scales in our music theory, which is the major scale. So for a quick recap, if you take a note, which is something vibrating with a frequency, and you double that frequency, you get the same note an octave higher. So G and G an octave higher. Likewise, F, double the frequency, F, A, double the frequency, A, and so on. And that's true for all of our notes. Right. In between those notes, that G and that G, you can theoretically have any number of notes you like, and you can split up the distance any way that you like. But on Western musical instruments, you cannot play an awful lot of those notes. So we tend to have a pattern of notes and a group of notes that we're actually used to. And the most basic one of these, the things that everything else seems to get named after, is a thing called the major scale. So the major scale, if we start off on G, for no particular reason, but it's kind of handy on the neck, and if we take a pattern of tones and semitones that goes tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, that is a G major scale. It's a G scale because we started on the G, and it's a major scale because it has that pattern. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Now, I've played it there on one string, but I could play it going across the neck as, or the pattern doesn't matter. So the pattern of how you play it on the neck doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how your guitar is tuned. It doesn't matter if you're playing it on a guitar or a harmonica or a piano. If you've got a pattern which goes tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, then it's a major scale. And if it starts on G, then it's a G major scale. And the reason that I say this is important is that when you hear different scale names, they're nearly all what you might call spelt out from the major scale. So if we put some numbers to these, first note, root note, we're going to call the 1. You've probably worked this pattern out already, haven't you? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we can go to 8. That's the octave of the first note. G, G. We could call that an 8, or we could call it a 1 again and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or we could go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And those numbers in the next octave are quite useful. You will sometimes hear chord names, something being described as an add 9, and an add 9 basically says that it's got a note from, it's got the 9th note which is in the higher octave added into it to extend the chord voicing out. So that's what those 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, they're the common ones that you'll come across. Those are what those numbers mean. If you just take your major scale and extend it up a bit, you get onto your 9th, 11th, 13th. But if we concentrate on the lower numbers for a moment, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is from the root to the second is an interval of a second. That's an interval of a third. And if we just stick with those two for a moment, we could say that's a major second, that's a major third. But if somebody just says, oh, it's a second, they're going to mean the second of a major scale. So if you want a flattened second, you take the second, the interval that you get in a major scale of a second, which is that, and you flatten it. Recognise that? Of course you do. If you get the interval of a third, 1, 2, 3, so a third, maybe we'd fully call that a major third. And then if you want a flattened third, take the third of the major scale and flatten it. A fifth, a flat fifth, and so on. Right. It can get a little bit confusing because, like so many things, music has its own set of terminology. And if we always said, oh, I would like you to play me a chord which is a 1, 3, 5, or oh, and 1, flat 3, 5, it would be very simple. You could go, you could do that and count them. So if you wanted a flat 7th, if that's your 7th, That's your flat seventh, nice and easy. The bit that confounds us is that we get names for things. We get names like dominant and augmented and diminished and minor, and they don't always do quite what you think they would do. So that interval could be a second or a major second. That could be a flattened second, or it might be called a minor second. That is a third or a major third. That is a flattened third or a minor third, and so on. Now, sevenths are a particular case in point, because if you were to play a chord, let's just take a nice simple A chord, and you might think that if you have got an A and you play an A seventh, well, if we go 6, 7, and that note is a, what's that? That's a G sharp. So you might think that if you're playing an A seventh, you would play it with a G sharp in it, and that wouldn't be what you'd be expecting. You just have to learn these, I'm afraid. So when somebody just says, oh, play me an A seventh, they mean a chord called a dominant seventh, which has got a flattened 7 in it, against a major seventh, and those are the things that make it really quite difficult. If you go to my website, www.mortalguitarist.com, hit the sign up button over there, and I will happily send out to you a sheet with the common terms that it's worth getting to grips with. And they are minors, diminished, augmented, sus, and dominants. And once you've got the spelling of those out, just a few, you just learn them, and it will help immeasurably, because it then ties everything back. You understand the spelling based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and so on. Okay, the major scale, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, drill it into your mind. It is the thing that everything else hangs off. It's the thing that when you then look at something like a pentatonic minor scale, you can go, and you can describe what you're playing and say, oh yeah, it's a 1, flattened 3, 4, 5, flattened 7th. You can spell any scale out using the degrees of the major scale. That's why it's so important. When you're looking at a chord dictionary, as well as having those bizarre names that you just have to learn, you will probably find that it spells out for you the intervals of the chord, and once you learn the intervals, you know it's the reason that you can play an F major, a G major, an A major, simply by moving a pattern, because it's the interval that dictates the kind of chord it is, just as it's the pattern that dictates the kind of scale you're playing. Okay, one last time, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Get that drilled into your head. Next time out, we are going to look at just a couple of the other kinds of scales that you get, and then I think it's going to be time to have a look at the thing that causes so much confusion, which is modes. So something to look forward to. Until next time, look after yourselves, be good. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't, really appreciate that. If you've got anything that you're not clear about, anything you'd like me to cover to sort of clarify, stick it down in the comments below. Pop over to my Facebook music page, stick a comment on there. I'll happily pick those up and try and cover off any questions that anyone's got. So be good, look after yourselves. I'm Andy, this is themortalguitarist.com. Bye now.